Ghana, Liberia, Cote d'Ivoire, Sierra Leone, Togo, and across Senegal. Don't miss our daily news bulletins, NEWSLINK, educative and informative programs, and lots more. West Africa Democracy Radio, 94.9 FM. It's you speaking.
Monday to Sunday.
It's hard to explain, okay? But
all day, all year round.
it's so mysterious.
This is who we are.
This is who we are.
WADR.
WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to NEWSLINK. Here are the top stories. ECOWAS denies accusations of any external influence in its handling of the Nigerian political crisis.
We've never discussed our plans with any foreign power. Whether they are on the ground, they are in the air, they are in their countries, ECOWAS is taking an independent, autonomous decision.
The Guinean Transitional Council confirms mobilization of $40 million to actualize its 10-point transition agenda. Authorities in Senegal welcomed 37 survivors of the shipwreck in Cape Verde last week. And Ghanaian members of parliament plan to protest against the central bank governor and his deputies.
We in the NDC call for the immediate resignation of the governor of the central bank and his deputies within 21 days from today. We are resolved to embark on popular action to occupy the central bank and drive out the team of callous and criminally minded mismanagers of our finances.
Stay with us for details of these stories and more.
Here is Tawfiq Abdul Nasser with NEWSLINK.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listeners in the Gambia, Ghana, and Liberia. The Economic Community of West African States denies claims and accusations that Western powers were influencing its decisions on the Nigerian crisis since the July 26 coup. One such country perceived to be swaying the regional bloc is France, Niger's former colonial master. But the ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Abdel Fattah Musa, emphasized the Commission's resolve to restore constitutional order in Niger as independent and free from any external force. As Ogiobi Erika reports, Musa's reaction came shortly after the Commission rejected the three-year proposed transitional plan by General Abdurrahman Chani's-led CNSP.
Unlike Mali, Burkina Faso and Guinea, where military coups have taken place in the last 3 years, Niger's power grab has sparked both local and international condemnation, as well as triggered a wave of diplomatic rift between ECOWAS and some member states. Since July 26, the regional bloc has remained relentless in engaging the mutineers led by General Abdurrahman Chiani to, among other things, return the country to constitutional rule, free and reinstate President Mohamed Bazoum. But amid the diplomatic headway made in the discussion between ECOWAS and Niger over the weekend, when a delegation met with CNSP officials and the ousted president, came a shocker. Chiani announced a 3-year transitional period set to be adopted in 30 days. Accused of being supported or influenced by Western powers, including France, ECOWAS Commissioner for Political Affairs, Peace and Security, Abdel Fattah Musa, denied such claims and rejected any transitional timetable.
We've never discussed our plans with any foreign power. Whether they are on the ground, they are in the air, they are in their countries, ECOWAS is taking an independent, autonomous decision. And then I'm just coming from Accra, where the Chiefs of Defense Staff finalized their preparation for a potential military intervention in the country. Foreign support was never part of the consideration at all. The member states said, we are going in with our own equipment, contingent, we are going with our own resources, and we are not asking anybody for support.
The ambassador stated that even if force is used to remove the junta, the countries showing support on the ground, including ECOWAS, will remain neutral and make independent decisions. In Niamey, thousands of citizens continue to pledge their undying support and solidarity with the junta should the bloc militarily intervene.
Ogiobi Erika reporting there. More on the path of constitutional governance in the West African bloc. The Guinean Transitional Authority says it has mobilized $40 million to finance the 10 key points in the transition timetable. However, this amount is less than 10% of the $600 million required by the ruling junta to actualize the transition blueprint it deems essential for a return to constitutional order. Francis Boniface has more in this report.
8 months after the launch of the countdown of the transition timetable, Conakry is still struggling to mobilize the funds needed to implement the items on the timetable. According to Guinean Prime Minister Bernard Gomo, the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, which has pledged to help Guinea achieve a successful political transition, is not honoring its commitment. The West African organization was supposed to help Conakry mobilize the funds requested from technical and financial partners. However, for the opposition, the ruling military wants to find a good reason to stay in power even longer. The National Council of Guinean Civil Society Organizations, CNOSC, warns that this could lead to a slippage in the timetable. For the Democratic Forces Union of Guinea, the main opposition party, the military wants to find an excuse to stay in power. According to sources, the delay in mobilizing funds to implement the 10 points of the transition timetable could be addressed this Tuesday during consultations between the government and socio-political players initiated by facilitators of the dialogue framework.
Francis Boniface, Fat report. Côte d'Ivoire's Independent Electoral Commission, CEI, has published its provisional list of candidates ahead of the September 16th senatorial elections. According to the Commission, 253 candidates filed via candidacy, out of which 123 candidates were accepted and 6 others rejected. 30 of the candidates are women, representing 12%, while men take up 88% on the senatorial election list. Martisi tells us more.
The Independent Electoral Commission, CEI, proceeded on August 21, 2023 to publish the provisional list of candidates for the September 16, 2023 ballot. According to the Electoral Code, the candidates have 3 days to make their complaints. In this momentum, the President of the Constitutional Council recalls in a statement that the Electoral Code confers the right on any voter to contest eligibility for the election of senators within 3 days from the date of publication of the candidacy. The complaints, therefore, are received by the Constitutional Council from Tuesday, August 22nd to August 24th, 2023, underlines the Constitutional Council. The Commission reiterated that the requests should be accompanied by supporting documents. At the end of the 3 days, no more complaints will be received, warns the Constitutional Council. The elections of senators is scheduled for September 16, 2023, 2 weeks after the elections of the municipal and regional councillors.
Martisi reporting there.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. NEWSLINK continues.
Now, a continental campaign by African leaders to demand the return of all illegally acquired African artifacts by the West has been set in motion at the maiden event to convene the restitution for African heritage organized by the Open Society for West Africa, OSIWA, in Accra. President Nana Akufo-Addo called for reparations for countries that were exploited during the transatlantic slave trade.
Let me state that the subject of restitutions must go along with the matter of reparations. No amount of money can restore the damage caused by the transatlantic slave trade, and its consequences, which have spanned many centuries. But nevertheless, it is now time to revive and intensify the discussions about reparations for Africa. Indeed, the time is long overdue. If reparations can rightfully be paid to victims of the Holocaust, so reparations can be paid to the victims of the slave trade. And even before these discussions on reparations conclude, the entire continent of Africa deserves a formal apology from the European nations involved in the slave trade for the crimes and damage it has caused to the population, psyche, image, and character of Africans the world over. The Caribbean community, CARICOM, has unequivocally announced its demand for the payment of reparations. And I would urge us to engage with our kith and kin from the diaspora and form a united front to advance the cause of reparations. I'm happy to announce that Ghana has been chosen by the African Union to host, in the latter part of this year, a global conference on reparations for Africa, which will seek to bring together Africans and members of the African diaspora and family of all hues and perspectives to set out a concrete strategy for achieving the goal of reparations.
Ghana's President Akufo-Addo speaking there. The Senegalese government has welcomed 37 survivors of the recent shipwreck that occurred off the Cape Verdean coast last week. The army aircraft that transported the migrants touched ground at midday on Monday with some relatives of the victims on board. Accompanying the victims from Cape Verde was the Minister of State for Foreign Affairs and Senegalese Abroad, Annette Seck Ndiaye. The arrival at the Wakam Air Force Base in Dakar stirred reactions as many of them are feared dead. Seck Ndiaye affirmed that the remains of the 7 bodies discovered during the rescue operations were buried on the spot by mutual agreement with the families of the victims. Meanwhile, relatives of the migrants from Fasboy, in appreciation of the state for the reparation exercise, pleaded with the government to support those who are in critical condition. They asked that the victims be taken to a hospital to run further examinations before they are finally reunited with their families. You are listening to NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar. Here is a reminder of our top stories. ECOWAS denies accusations of any external influence in its handling of the Nigerian political crisis. The Guinean Transitional Council confirms mobilizing $40 million to actualize its 10-point transition agenda. Authorities in Senegal welcomed 37 survivors of the shipwreck in Cape Verde last week. Also coming up, Ghanaian members of parliament plan to protest against the central bank governor and his deputies. We also have the press review, guest interview, and sports update. Stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
The minority in Ghana's parliament has written to the police informing the service of a decision to embark on a demonstration exercise on Tuesday, September 5, 2023. The MPs seek to protest against the governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, and his deputies after they issued a 21-day ultimatum about a fortnight ago for them to resign. The Apex Bank had revealed $5 billion in losses incurred in the 2022 fiscal year and budgeting to use $250 million to build a new headquarters in times of such grave financial austerity. From Accra, Atiwin Mbilolosin completes the story.
Speaking at a news conference in Accra earlier this month, the minority leader, Dr. Kezo Atuforsen, indicated that the minority side, together with opposition National Democratic Congress members, will stage a march to occupy the premises of the central bank if the trio, namely the governor and his 2 deputies, do not step down.
We in the NDC call for the resignation, immediate resignation of the governor of the central bank and his deputies within 21 days from today. We are resolved to embark on popular action to occupy the central bank and drive out the team of inept, callous, and criminally minded mismanagers of our finances to save the Bank of Ghana.
Responding to the allegations of reckless, illegal, and imprudent expenditure, plunging the central bank into an unprecedented loss, the governor of the central bank maintained that his outfit did no wrong.
The debt included all the legacy debts of government of Ghana dating back to 1992. The debt, therefore, is not about recent debt alone. Let me also seize this opportunity to talk about an issue that has come up lately in the media and one which borders on our new head office building. That the bank followed all the necessary public procurement processes in this endeavor. No procurement laws were broken. The bank acted in good faith for the broader interest of Ghana's economy.
In the letter signed by the minority leader, Dr. Kieso Atuforsen, the group said the civil society organizations and other groups will also take part in next month's protest. Reporting for NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I am Atiewin Imbila Lawson in Accra.
The government of Liberia, along with its partners, have begun admitting disadvantaged youths into its rehabilitation center. The exercise, which began on Monday, saw the first 1,000 people coming in voluntarily to be rehabilitated and reunited with their families. WADR's Darlington Popper in Monrovia reports.
The operation began with hundreds of drug addicts, middle young people commonly referred to as Zogos, pouring in for the pre-intake screening. Speaking at the opening ceremony, the head of the program, who doubles as the Minister of Youth and Sports, Yoga Wilson, said the initiative marks the beginning of the empowerment of disadvantaged youths to positively contribute to society.
These are young men and women who are living a life that is not conducive to society. They themselves know it, and every time they see us, they want to be transformed. We have worked as a government with the One UN system and other development partners to develop the at-risk youth rehabilitation program.
During the exercise, some of the disadvantaged youths appreciated the government for the opportunity offered by the program.
As someone judge on the street here, and someone judge, I'm tired. I'm too glad to see Zoka Wilson, my president. I pray for my brothers to do the same follow-up. I kneel down to come down to the hill that we can be 10 from the life too and take the same step I will take.
Thank you. Really for me, I'm tired with the drug habit because I lost my family.
The Liberian Health Minister, Dr. Wilhelmina Jala, for her part revealed that the government, in collaboration with its partners, will ensure that those entering the rehabilitation centers are tested and treated for other diseases before the detoxification process.
Rehabilitation process will be psychosocial counseling, integration counseling, as well as skill counseling.
She said the measure have been instituted to provide special care for females who are pregnant, including those with children in slums. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Darlington Popper in Monrovia joins us again with the major headlines from the Liberian dailies.
For this edition of Press Review, we have with us three newspapers from Liberia. They are the Front Page Africa newspaper, the Inquirer newspaper, and the Heritage newspaper. So we will begin a review process with the Front Page Africa newspaper with this bold banner headline that says, "The Voters' Trump Card." And we see the photograph of several Liberians on the front page of the Front Page Africa newspaper. Still on the Front Page Africa newspaper, JMB, that's former Vice President Joseph Yuma Boakai, throws Ure Ellen Johnson Sirleaf under the bus. Liberians will not be intimidated by drums of war. We see the photograph of President George Manawiya. On the back page of the Front Page Africa newspaper is all about sports. From the front page Africa newspaper, the Inquirer newspaper is our next stop. Zogos disrupt church service in Nimba. A group of at-risk youth, commonly known as Zogos, disrupted a service at the Fifth Baptist Church in Blegel Town community in Ganta, Nimba County. Speaking to this people at the police station in Ganta, elder of the church, Sam Dunn, explained that Zogos attempted stealing one of the worshippers' motorbike from the church compound during the service, but was caught, which led to the group attacking the worshippers, demanding them to release their colleague. According to Elder Dunn, the action of the Zogos left some members of the church wounded and an ongoing medical treatment at various health centers in Ganta, Nimba County. We will leave it right there. What an interesting story here. Still on the front page of the Inquirer newspaper. Government fails to prosecute alleged murderer. We see the photograph of this defendant, Sir Joseph, on the front page of the Inquirer newspaper. He was free yesterday following 7 years in pre-trial detention because the government of Liberia, especially the prosecutor, could not proceed to court to prosecute him. On the back page of the Inquirer newspaper, Wanto Tier Wanto named the Liberia's 176th Flag Day orator. Government recruits at-risk youth for rehabilitation. Countdown 49 days, presidential and legislative elections. Our last stop for this edition of Press Review is the Heritage newspaper. We will return fire for fire. CDC National Campaign Manager hits back at opposition politicians. We see the photograph of Eugene Nangbe on the front page of the Heritage newspaper. MOE, that's the Ministry of Education, designates Wanto Tier Wanto as orator for 176th Flag Day celebration. That is how I would love to conclude today's edition of Press Review. On that note, thank you so much for following, and bye-bye.
Darlington Popper there with the major headlines from the Liberian dailies.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Our featured guest interview this afternoon takes us to Guinea as the transitional government discusses the obstacles it is facing in securing sufficient funds for the process of transitioning into a constitutional order. In the latest update, the head of the transition, Mamadi Doumbouya, declared the mobilization of $40 million out of the required $600 million needed to achieve this goal. Expressing frustration with ECOWAS, the junta claims that the organization has not provided the necessary support to gather funds from technical and financial partners. In contrast, opposition parties and various civil society organizations perceive this move as a tactic by the military government to prolong their stay in power. We are joined in this discussion by Morgan Asoba, a regional security and governance expert.
The ECOWAS support is going to be relevant if ECOWAS deems to do it, because just as you are describing, in a current situation where there is a kind of let's call it opposition in terms of the way to go on a critical issue, which is the issue of democracy according to the ECOWAS and the issue of sovereignty. So Guinea, being part of those countries supporting Niger, are finding themselves in a position where claiming or requesting any assistance from the ECOWAS becomes a huge challenge within the current trends, because for an effective transition, according to the agreement that has been reached between Guinea and ECOWAS, there must be a specific availability in terms of equipment and funding for the transition to be held within the time frame that has been specified.
So opposition parties and various civil society organizations hold a different view, suggesting that this might be a tactic by the military government to prolong its grip on power. Considering that such elections demand financial resources, should the junta not be afforded the benefit of the doubt?
Obviously, and this involves some critical observation of what was the agreement between the junta and the ECOWAS and various other financial and technical partners. If the agreement was that we spend this amount of time for the transition, and the other way you will support us with this amount of funding and this amount of technical assistance. If that was the agreement, and currently the let's say disposition are not being taken to provide Guinea with the needed financial assistance and the needed technical assistance, obviously the agreement will not hold. It is factual. If the agreement was such as it has been described, then we are in a critical situation, and ECOWAS and other partners will gain more in contributing effectively to supporting the junta. Things are tough for everybody, including the potential partners and including the ECOWAS member state. So this is a situation that will call for a renegotiation.
So finally, in an upcoming dialogue, the junta and key socio-political actors are scheduled to deliberate on these 10 pivotal points outlined in the transition timeline. And so I'm asking, what recommendations would you propose for the involved parties?
First of all, the parties should be very objective in their contributions and come out with an adjustment that will help each of the parties to move toward the constitutional order according to the will of the people. So all the parties should have an objective view, but not focus on their position as it stands currently.
Morgan Asogba is a regional security and governance expert. Here is Sankule Janko with Sports Update.
Hello there, welcome and thank you for joining us. Nigeria's Super Falcons are among the top 10 ranked teams in the world, according to the latest FIFA World Rankings. This comes following their impressive performance at the just concluded FIFA Women's World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. Nigeria were knocked out at the round of 16 after a 4-2 penalty shootout defeat by England. The Super Falcons are ranked 10th in the world, behind former world champions USA. Nigeria are the highest ranked African team in the world, ahead of Morocco in 12th place, South Africa in 16th place, and Zambia in 25th position. Meanwhile, newly crowned world champions Spain are the top ranked team in the world, ahead of England in 2nd place. Sweden and Australia are 3rd and 4th respectively. Japan, France, the Netherlands, Colombia and the USA complete the top 10 in that order. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
We have come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to our listeners in the Gambia via Hot 104.3 FM and Numi FM 94.0 Banjul, in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM Lofa County. We also thank our listeners in Ghana on Radio Pod 95.1 Savannah region and on Royals FM 104.7 Wenchi. Inyas Bilimo has been on the console, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek for the social network live stream. Do interact with us via social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Tawfiq Abdul Nasir. Good afternoon.
News, talk, music, get it all 24 hours on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM.